Is that one of ours?
Just who the hell are you? What? Who the hell are you?
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Nightowl channel. Welcome back to the series where we're counting down the top Dynasty Warriors characters as of the latest game. Coming in at number 12, we have Gan Ning of the Bells.
They call me Gan Ning of the Bells. Let's play.
Gan Ning is a reputed Wu general, and during his youth he led a pirate group that infamously wore bells to warn their enemies of their impending doom. After a fallout with Huang Zun, Gan Ning served Sun Quan for the rest of his days. In response to Gan Ning's surprise raid at Rushiku, Sun Quan said, "Cao Cao has Zhang Liao, and I have Gan Ning." Gan Ning's death was a crushing blow to him, and Roman to the Three Kingdoms further dramatizes his conflict with Ling Tong. Before we jump into how Gan Ning has changed within this series since his playable debut back in Dynasty Warriors 2, let's take a look at the popularity polls to see why the infamous pirate is up here at number 12. In the first popularity poll, consisting of about 75,000 total votes, we have Gan Ning coming in with 1,502 of those votes, putting him in the 15th position. In the second popularity poll, he's going to unfortunately drop all the way down to the 42nd position. And then in my personal rankings, Gan Ning is going to break the top 10 at number 8. So for me personally, Gan Ning breaks the top 10. He's one of my favorite characters in the Dynasty Warriors series, and he's just hard not to like. I mean, he's such a cool character. And ever since I picked up the game, Gan Ning has always been one of my favorites. He just has a really cool look, a really cool energy and aura about him, and he's always a character that I've always been drawn to play. Throughout some of his changes, it has waned on how much I've liked the character, and depending on how he's looked or the weapons he was given and all that stuff. But for the most part, I've always liked Gan Ning. He's always been one of my favorite characters, and I'm always interested to see where they take his story and what he does within the game. He's a very energetic, go-hung type of character, always ready to go to battle, always ready to fight. And he's one of the first ones that's in the battle just looking for a really good time. He has a very similar trait to that of Sun Ce, like I mentioned in my last video. And they have similar qualities of, like, they're ready to go to battle. They just want to go to battle, they want to have fun. And they just, you know, that's where Gan Ning gets his thrill. He gets his thrills from being in battle, fighting against worthy opponents like Zhang Liao and others of that caliber. Gan Ning always has a sense of, he wants to challenge himself. He wants to fight people who he thinks are worthy and wants that challenge. He loves that thrill. And I've always liked that about the character because it brings out a positive trait of the character and not a negative one. He's not like a negative, hostile, like I want to just slaughter everyone. He wants to genuinely have fun and go to battle, which not only satisfies his personal like thrill to fight, but it also helps his kingdom when he's fighting at his best and of course accomplishing the things he needs to accomplish as a general of Wu. And for me, the character has always been one of my favorites. He's always going to be one of my top 10s. I love his attitude, his fighting style, just his whole personality, the way he vibes with certain characters. He's just a really good character, and I've always liked him. But with that being said, before we jump into how Gan Ning has changed within the series, because he has a lot of changes, let's talk a little bit more about Gan Ning for people who don't know. So Gan Ning was a Chinese military general serving under the warlord Sun Quan, and he was originally a notorious pirate, but he gave up the life of a marauder in the late 190s and became a subordinate of Huang Zu. But he was disheartened by Huang Zu's indifferent attitude towards him, and Gan Ning eventually left Huang Zu and made his way into Wu territory. That's where he found his calling and became a military officer under the warlord Sun Quan. Throughout his years of service under Sun Quan until his death, Gan Ning fought in numerous battles for his lord. He plays a very integral part in the Wu Kingdom, and being a former pirate, Gan Ning is a man of action who doesn't like to adjust to proper etiquette. He was wild and fearless, and he was merely satisfied with a good brawl in battle. He's confident in his abilities, and though he seems arrogant, he has a good head on his shoulders and knows when to rely on teamwork. So within the games, Gan Ning has this carefree kind of whatever I need to do to just go to battle, just let me go and do that. There are some instances within some of his stories where there is resistance to that, and you can see Gan Ning kind of throwing a fit to that, like, just let me fight. I don't need strategy, I don't need a plan, just let me do what I gotta do so I can go fight. And I really like that attitude and personality that Gan Ning is portrayed in the game. I've always liked that free kind of just, you know, he wants to have fun. He wants to go to battle, have fun, and really challenge himself as a warrior. I don't mind that at all with Gan Ning. I've always liked that personality, and his ability to click within the Wu army and with certain characters is always really fun to see. Him, Lu Meng, and Ling Tong, these three are the trio, and seeing those three have a really good relationship within the series is always really cool to see. With Ling Tong being added in Dynasty Warriors 5, and Gan Ning being responsible for the death of his father, just seeing how that relationship builds from that circumstance is always really interesting to see. And Gan Ning doesn't really have any hatred towards Ling Tong. I would say he's more annoyed, and as we get into the relationship section, I'll dive deeper into it. But seeing that progress from that annoyed hatred state all the way to almost comradeship and friendship is always really cool to see. And then of course his relationship with Lu Meng is very cherished to him as well. And again, Gan Ning is a very special and important part in the Wu Kingdom. Sun Quan realizes how talented and how much he contributes to the kingdom and uses him to the best of his abilities in order to help Wu move forward. But Gan Ning is always a character that I've enjoyed playing. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump into how Gan Ning has changed within the series. He's got quite a bit of changes, so we're just going to go ahead and start off with his appearance. So Gan Ning's appearance within the games definitely goes through a bit of changes. Dynasty Warriors 5 to 6 is when he gets the most drastic change, and then from like Dynasty Warriors 6 to 9, he goes through a bunch of different changes. Like 6 to 7 is different, 7 to 8 is different, and then like 8 to 9 is also a little bit different as well. Now overall, I think the appearance for the character is relatively good. From Dynasty Warriors 2 to 5, the pre-Dynasty Warriors 6 era, great look for Gan Ning. I've always, enjoyed that look for him. Really cool, really good look. Dynasty Warriors 6, he gets a drastic change to his appearance. When I first played as him when I was a kid picking up Dynasty Warriors 6, I did not like the way he looked. As of right now, I don't think it's too bad. I think Dynasty Warriors 6 is an okay look for him. Nothing that I would complain too much about. Of course, it's not like the best look for him, but I thought it fit him pretty well. And then Dynasty Warriors 7, I particularly didn't like his look in Dynasty Warriors 7. I didn't like the long hair. Wasn't really my type of look. And then Dynasty Warriors 8 gets better. He goes back to the short hair. He looks more like that pirate Gan Ning style from the earlier games. And then Dynasty Warriors 9, I think they really go back to his roots, which I don't mind at all. And also within the game, he's the only character that I've seen that has these tattoos. Like, he was the first character that has like these really cool tattoos. He's got like 2 dragon heads coming up and into his chest. He's got the tails running down his arms, and he's always been a really cool looking character to me. I mean, that's a badass looking character, like super cool. Of course, he has his bells. The bells add on to that intimidating presence that Gan Ning was known for. He didn't care if you heard him coming. He wanted you to know that he was coming and that you were on the verge of death, because you hear those bells, it's pretty much over for you. Adding those little things to his appearance and everything like that just really made Gan Ning a really compelling character, and I've always liked the way he looked. But like I said, overall his appearance is pretty good. The only one I really didn't like was Dynasty Warriors 7. I just couldn't, he just looked weird. I don't know. The hair wasn't good for him. Now moving on to his weapon style, he's also gone through quite a bit of changes with his weapon style. Within the first few games, he gets the sword, like his basic, pirate sword that he has, and it was a pretty good weapon. I couldn't complain too much about it. I like the moveset. He was a very physical fighter, if that makes sense. So it wasn't just a lot of like technical sword movements for him. He had punches in there, he had kicks. He was a very brawly type of character, and that was shown within his sword moveset. Then in Dynasty Warriors 6, he gets the dual knives. I actually like the dual knives. They were actually pretty cool for Gan Ning. They fit him really well. And I did not mind the moveset for him with those weapons. I thought, it fit him as a pirate. It fit him, again, going back to that brawling kind of fighter style. Nothing too technical. He's just there to have a good brawl, have a good fight. And at the end of the day, that's all Gan Ning really needs. And then moving on to Dynasty Warriors 7, 8, and 9. So in Dynasty Warriors 7 and 9, he gets the sickle and chain. And then in Dynasty Warriors 8, he gets the flail. Now, these weapons were okay for him. Dynasty Warriors 9 was probably the best version of this style. Flail and the sickle and chain are 2 different weapons, but they're kind of the same, at least to me. It's just, you know, a weapon that's connected to a chain. So the flail has like a little ball at the end, but the sickle and chain has a little mini sickle at the end. The moveset was relatively the same. He had some grapple moves with it, which was pretty cool. It was an okay style. I think in Dynasty Warriors 9, it was the best version of that style. But if I were to pick a style for Gan Ning, I preferred the dual knives or the pirate sword for him. I think that fit him pretty well. The Musou attacks in all the games was relatively okay. The earlier games, it was definitely hard to use his Musou attack. It was a great attack for getting away from people or closing the distance or like taking out crossbowmen who were far away from you. That's kind of what I used it for. It was pretty difficult to try and like use it for a 1v1 scenario. If you're like getting overwhelmed and you need to get out, you just, you know, use a Musou attack, get out of it, reset, and go back to fighting the guy. But Dynasty Warriors 6, it was okay. It was okay. I think he smashes the ground and like a nice little AoE comes out, so that's pretty cool. The build up to the explosion is pretty cool, but other than that, it was, you know, it was okay. It wasn't anything too crazy. Dynasty Warriors 7 and 8, those were okay as well. It definitely goes with the character's personality of being wild, you know, that wild, ferocious, you know, reckless kind of behavior. Definitely isn't, you know, these Musou attacks definitely go along with that theme. His Musou attacks are very average. Alright, now moving on to Gan Ning's voice acting. His voice acting in pretty much all the games is actually really, really good. His best one, I don't really know. Like Dynasty Warriors 3 through 5, he maintains a similar one. Dynasty Warriors 3, he had a different one.
You're in good hands. You're in my hands.
Than the one he had in Dynasty Warriors 4 and 5.
Kill the enemy, protect your allies. It's as simple as that.
But I believe the voice acting, even though it was two different people, I believe it mimicked the same thing. Like it was more like a rough, coarse, brazen kind of sound. And it fit Gan Ning pretty well. Like it fit him as a character. I don't really have anything to complain about it. But Dynasty Warriors 6 through 9, it was a different voice style, but it still fit Gan Ning. Like Dynasty Warriors 6 through 8, he had the same one.
I guess I'll go attack them all at their boats. Less experienced soldiers should stay and protect the rear.
And then he gets a different one in Dynasty Warriors 9.
First, I'm gonna have to teach you how to choose some better prey.
But like I said, the voice acting for him, I think overall was really good. It just depends on the style that you like more for the character. I think both of them fit. Like Dynasty Warriors 6 and on is more of a smoother, lighthearted, more kind of voice style versus Dynasty Warriors 3 through 5. I mean, Dynasty Warriors 3 through 5, he still had that lightheartedness in some of the things he said, but the voice was so coarse and deep. It was just completely different from the way it is after Dynasty Warriors 6. But both of them fit him really, really well. Like I don't really know which one is the best one for him. It's hard for me to really say, but I think all of the voices for him in all the games is really, really good. Now, moving on to his significant battles, his relationships, and his death. We're going to start off with his significant battles. He's got a few significant battles within the game, and the first one we're going to talk about is the Battle of Jakku. The Battle of Jakku was the battle where Gan Ning is under the service of Huang Zu. This is the battle where he kills Ling Tong's father, Ling Sao. That's where their whole relationship kind of starts. The Battle of Jakku happens, Sun Quan defeats Huang Zu, and then he recruits Gan Ning. So after this battle within the game, this is how Gan Ning joins the Wu Kingdom. So it's a very important battle for him because it's basically the start of his story. Then moving on to the Battle of Chibi. Not a super significant battle for Gan Ning in terms of like it's his time to shine within this battle, but he was a part of it, and it was very important for him to be a part of it and do the best he can to help them succeed in that battle. Because they were relying on the fire attack and of course a naval battle, with Gan Ning being a former pirate, him fighting on the waters is his specialty, so him being there definitely put the advantage in favor of Wu. And having Gan Ning there and having someone with that naval expertise definitely gave a huge advantage for the allied forces. Now moving on to probably his most significant battles in the game, we have the Battle of Hefei / Rushiku. So these battles happen relatively in the same area and like within relatively the same time. So the Battle of Hefei is extremely important. It ends up being a loss for the Wu Kingdom, but it's very important for Gan Ning because this is the battle where Sun Quan and then within history, they established that Gan Ning is of caliber that is equal to Zhang Liao. Just like I mentioned in the beginning, this is the battle where Sun Quan quotes, "If Cao Cao has Zhang Liao, I have Gan Ning." Gan Ning is of an equal match to Zhang Liao. Gan Ning is up there with him. And this is the battle where he proves it. It's the battle of Gan Ning versus Zhang Liao. Now within the games, I think there's only like one cutscene, maybe in Dynasty Warriors 8, where he specifically is actually fighting him. In Dynasty Warriors 7, they cut it off right before it happens. And then I don't think they really mentioned it in their earlier games. This is the battle where it's Gan Ning versus Zhang Liao. Zhang Liao, does his plan. Gan Ning is the reinforcement to this battle, and the morale of the Wu forces skyrockets when Gan Ning comes, because that's the kind of presence that he had within this battle at this point in time in history. And then the final battle I want to talk about is the battle of Yiling. And we're also going to talk about his death a little bit too, because this battle has a little bit of an intersection with his death. The battle of Yiling is the battle after Fan Castle. It's the revenge for Guan Yu and a decisive victory for the Wu forces. Now, within some of the games, I believe Dynasty Warriors 6, maybe 7, and Dynasty Warriors 8, this is the battle where Gan Ning passes away. Dynasty Warriors 9, it happens after this battle. He was wounded from something. They don't say what it was, but he's sitting on the rock. They give him the lame death. Some of the characters get in that game, but this is the battle where some of the games has him dying, and he gets killed usually by a character named Shimok. Within history, it's really unknown when he dies, I believe. The cause of death is unknown, and when he dies is unknown, but this is the battle that Romance of the Three Kingdoms has Gan Ning dying at. So now moving on to the final part of his segment, we have his relationships, and he's got a few relationships within the game, and then he has one NPC relationship that I want to talk about that's very important to him. So I'm going to start off with the most obvious ones. We have Lu Meng and Ling Tong. This is the trio right here. These three are really built a friendship with each other, and it's mainly because, Lu Meng was in charge of these two, and of course with Gan Ning killing Ling Tong's father and everything, there's automatically a relationship right there. The games make it a positive one towards the end, but it does not start out that way. So him and Ling Tong have a very hostile relationship all the way up until probably the end, towards like the end of their story, when they start acknowledging each other and helping each other out and saving each other. I've always liked the relationship with him and Ling Tong. It's always been really cool to see that dynamic duo, from where their story kind of originates to where it goes. Always fun to see, always really heartwarming to see a character like Gan Ning, reckless, wild, doesn't really care too much about others. He's there to have a good time and get his, his own personal thing that he wants, and then that's it. He goes and takes a nap, or he waits for his next battle, and that's it. But having this relationship with Ling Tong and of course Lu Meng, it's really cool. It's a way for the character to show that he has a heart. He's a person. He's emotional. He's a human. But with Ling Tong, it's cool to see that even towards the end, when Ling Tong still has moments where he's still a little upset, Gan Ning takes the time in the best way that he can to console him and be like, look, man, we were enemies back then, we're allies now. I was only doing my job back then. It was nothing personal. So eventually they become really good friends, dynamic duo. They're looking out for each other. Really cool to see that. Then him and Lu Meng, very close relationship as well, because this is his mentor. Even though he kind of shrugs him off and he doesn't really give him the time of day, and he's like, whatever you say, old man. I mean, he calls him old man, even though I think he's only like a few years older than him. It's just really cool to see that relationship, that chumminess, that playfulness that Gan Ning is able to bring out in Lu Meng. When Lu Meng passes away, it really affects Gan Ning. He has to, in some of the games, he starts to realize that he's more responsible. He needs to be a more responsible leader. Losing someone like Lu Meng and understanding that, what, I need to take this a little more seriously. That's really cool to see. You can see the character developing from where he was into a responsible, still thrill, still wants to fight, still kind of wild, still reckless, but it's more controlled and, out of respect and, loving memory of the person that he looked up to as a teacher or mentor. But those two were the most important relationships for him within the game. Now moving on to his relationship with Sun Quan, I would say it's more surface level kind of relationship, just respectful. Gan Ning just respecting him as a leader, as a lord, doing what he asks, no question. As long as he can do what he can do, he has no quarrels with being under Sun Quan. I would say he really likes the fact that Sun Quan actually cherishes him as a general versus, his previous ruler in Huangzu, who didn't really have any feelings towards him and didn't really care about him at all. I think he genuinely likes that Sun Quan actually cares about him. Now moving on to his more minor relationships, we have Lu Xun. So then Dynasty Warriors 6 is more evident. Dynasty Warriors 7 and 8, there's a couple of incidents where they're like talking to each other, but it's not super evident. Just a super small one. Dynasty Warriors 6 is really where it gets highlighted. And they have a minor relationship throughout most of the games, and just, I think Gan Ning gets to a point eventually when like Lu Meng passes away, understanding his positioning and again, becoming that leader he needs to be in order to help propel the Wu Kingdom forward. And then finally, his last relationship is with an NPC. His name is Su Fei. Very important relationship for Gan Ning. I was reading within history. This character actually was on his side when he was under Huangzu. He was like recommending him to him and, basically giving him advice like, look, man, your talents are being wasted here. Let me see if I can recommend you to a higher position so that way you can go and do what you want and you can get out of here. It was really cool to see that interaction. Maybe they make that more of a relationship within the next game or something, because I didn't really know about it until I read about it, but Su Fei was really close close to Gan Ning and really helping him get to honestly where Sun Quan and the Wu forces were. And then, you know, Wu goes and attacks Huang Zu and captures him and everything. He basically pleads to Sun Quan to not kill Su Fei because he was like, this is the guy that is the reason I'm here. If you could pardon him, that would mean, you know, the world to him. That would mean so much to me. And then Sun Quan responds like, well, what if he leaves? What if he's not content with being here? Basically, Gan Ning said he wouldn't do that, but if he did, you can kill me instead. And Sun Quan ended up being so moved by that, he pardoned Su Fei, and Su Fei became a part of the Wu Kingdom. But I just wanted to mention that really quickly because it was really interesting to read about that, Gan Ning having this kind of relationship with this character. But it's not really mentioned in the games. They can find a way to include that. I thought it was pretty important to Gan Ning's story, since within history it seems like this character is responsible for him going to Wu. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have for Gan Ning of the Bells, an infamous pirate, number 12 on the list. A very popular character. I've always liked the character. He's always going to be a top 10 for me. The way he looks is badass. His weapon style went through a bunch of iffy changes, but for who Gan Ning is, I mean, relatively, it was okay. It was just fine. Can't complain too much about the weapon style. Voice acting was great, and I love the relationship he has with Lu Meng and Ling Tong. Those are always some of my favorite moments for him within the games, and of course, hearing his bells, like when they incorporate, you know, when he's running and you can hear the bells, and they're like, oh snap, it's Gan Ning of the Bells. Always really cool to see. Always enjoy seeing that. That's pretty much all I have for Gan Ning here, guys. Let me know what you guys think about him down below. Do you guys like him? We're almost at the top 10. If you have not seen your character or a certain character yet, they're probably going to be in the top 10, and I'm excited to reveal those characters to you. Hopefully I'm doing them justice, and hopefully these videos are entertaining for you guys. But that's all I have for the video, guys. If you guys enjoyed it, definitely appreciate a like, comment, or subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, everyone.